Değerli katılımcılarımız, Uluslararası Sempozyumumuzun ikinci gününe de hoş geldiniz, şeref verdiniz efendim. Dün oldukça yoğun, verimli ve ufuk açıcı bir programı hep birlikte geride bıraktık. Dijital çağda ürün güvenliği ve piyasa gözetimi ve denetiminin dönüşümünden çevrim içi piyasalarda ürün güvenliğine, EPGD araçlarından gümrük süreçleriyle entegrasyona kadar pek çok önemli başlığı değerli konuşmacılarımızın katkılarıyla ele aldık. Bugün yeni oturumlar ve yeni değerlendirmelerle programımıza devam ediyoruz. İkinci günümüzde ürün güvenliği sistemlerinin geleceğinde giderek daha önemli bir yer tutan dijital ürün pasaportuna odaklanacağız. Gün boyunca dijital ürün pasaportunun yasal ve teknik mimarisi, uygulama altyapıları ve Türkiye açısından olası etkileri değerlendirilecektir. Ancak yoğun içerikli programımıza başlamadan önce güne kısa ama anlamlı bir hatırlatmayla başlamak istiyoruz. Hepimizin güvenli ürünlerle, bilinçli tercihlerle ve daha güvenli bir gelecekle buluştuğu bir sabaha küçük bir pencere açmak istiyoruz. Proje kapsamında hazırlanan Güvenli Ürün, Güvenli Gelecek temalı kısa videomuzla sizleri baş başa bırakıyorum.
Efe, hadi oğlum çayları koydum.
Of mis gibi menemen koktu. Nasıl da açım var ya.
Tahsin, bu çay makinesinden yine acayip sesler gelmeye başladı.
Tamam, kahvaltıdan sonra bakarım.
Tahsin'cim bakacak bir şey yok. Miadını doldurdu artık bu. Beni rahat bırakın diye isyan ediyor alet. Şuna bak, normal mi sence?
Tamam. Yarın gider yenisini alırız. Gene masraf.
Anne bak, çay makinesi indirime gelmiş, puan da bayağı yüksek. İstersen siparişini vereyim.
Aa bakayım. Oğlum güzel. Güzel de biz babanla gider alırız.
Aynen. Hem bakmadan görmeden alır mı oğlum? Güvenemem ben.
Yani yeni güvenemeyesin. Mağazada göreceğin zaten bütün bilgilerin internette yapılan satışta da olması gerekiyor. Bak şimdi. Satın alacağın ürünün ilan sayfasında güvenlik bilgileri diye kısım var. Ürünün görsellerini de görebiliyorsun. Burada da güvenlik işaretleri var. Ha bak mesela burada CE işareti var.
Allah. Peki nereden bileceğiz bu bilgilerin doğruluğunu? Üründe bir sıkıntı çıkarsa muhatabını nereden bulacağız?
Babacım doğru olmak zorunda, yoksa zaten cezası var. Bak ayrıca sorumlu kişi bilgileri de burada var.
Hadi o zaman ben siparişini de görelim bakalım dediğin gibi mi?
Ha bu arada bu bilgilerin yer almadığı sayfalardan sakın bir şey almıyorsunuz.
Bak bakalım Zehra Hanım. İstediğin gibi mi?
Vallahi bir sorun görünmüyor. Fotoğraflardakinin aynısı. Kullanma kılavuzu da var.
Bir çay demle de asıl testten geçecek mi ona bakalım.
Olur.
Efe, oğlum bak bakalım şu tıraş makinesinin yanında da gerekli bilgiler var mı?
Bakayım baba.
Bana masraf çıkartma diyene bak. Senin bu işi öğretmen iyi mi oldu, kötü mü oldu bilemedim oğlum.
Ticaret Bakanlığı'nın yeni mevzuatı gereği internet, televizyon, telefon gibi uzaktan iletişim araçları aracılığıyla satılan ürün ilanlarında ürün güvenliğine ilişkin bilgilerin yer alması zorunludur. Vatandaşlarımız çevrim içi platformlardan ürün alırken fiziksel mağazalarda olduğu gibi güvenlik bilgilerini kontrol edebilir ve gerektiğinde sorumlu kişilerle irtibata geçebilirler. İster rafta, ister ekranda. Güvenli ürün, güvenli gelecek.
Emeği geçen herkesin ellerine sağlık. Bu güzel ve önemli hatırlatmanın ardından ikinci günün ilk sempozyumumuzun 4. oturumu olan Dijital Ürün Pasaportu, Yasal ve Teknik Mimari oturumumuzda çevrim içi olarak aramızda olan konuşmacılarımızı takdim etmek istiyorum. Avrupa Komisyonu DG Growth G2 Tek Pazar ve Uygulama Araçları Birim Başkan Yardımcısı Sayın Balcells Cartagena ve Fraunhofer IP2 Berlin İşletme ve Fabrika Yönetim Bölüm Başkanı ve CEN-CENELEC JTC 24 DPP Çerçeve ve Sistem Başkanı Profesör Doktor Sayın Ing Thomas Knothe. For all distinguished online speakers, we are pleased to welcome Ms. Anna Balcells Cartagena, Deputy Head of Unit at the European Commission, DG Grow, G2 Single Market and Implementation Tools, and Professor Dr. Ing Thomas Knothe, Head of Department for Business and Factory Management and Fraunhofer IP2 Berlin, and Chair of CEN-CENELEC JTC 24 DPP Framework and System. Thank you for joining us. With that, I would like to give the floor Ms. Anna Balcells Cartagena, our first presenter in this session.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right. So I would like to start by thanking very much the organizers of this session for the invitation. And it's a pleasure for me to be here, even if only online today, to discuss the Digital Product Passport, because it's one of the main digitalization initiatives that the Commission is working on. And I think it resonates very well with what we have just seen in the video, which I found very interesting and very telling. Because the Digital Product Passport, or the DPP, as you will hear me referring to it this morning, started as a sustainability instrument and to facilitate sustainability and circularity of products, but it is much more than that today and has the potential to become much more than that. So I would focus my presentation today on three main aspects. I will start by displaying the presentation and hoping you can see it all right. So just a bit of a warning that while I'm displaying the presentation, I cannot see the room or myself, but I can still hear you. If you have any questions, we can take them at the end. So I would like to focus on 3 or 4 main aspects today of the Digital Product Passport before starting to go into the legal and technical framework, which is a big novelty, so it can be a bit complex as well. We will introduce exactly what it is, the DPP, and what it intends to be. And then at the end of the presentation, I will explain a little bit the way forward and what the Commission is taking as the next concrete steps in deploying the Digital Product Passport. So to start, an introduction, really, what is the Digital Product Passport? I believe that the best way to explain it or to think about it is the DPP is sort of a digital identity card for products, the same way that we have an identity card for citizens, and we can have it also digitally. The Digital Product Passport will be this sort of identity container of information for products in a digital format. So what we are finding today is that information on products, it's often scattered around manuals, labels, declaration of conformity, or websites. So it's also scattered in terms of format. Some of it is physical, some of it may be virtual. So the idea is that we digitalize all of this information into one single container, that is the DPP. The DPP can be accessible via scanning it through a data carrier. This can be a QR code, as you see on the slide, or any other data carrier that can be machine readable. And it can be supported by several technical systems, websites, portals, registries, etc. And of course, you could see it from your phone as well. And then what is very important to underline is that the DPP, while there is a unique DPP, the DPP in terms of the type of information that you will see when scanning it, it's different depending on the product group. And these differences are being mandated via secondary legislation processes. So for each product group, we will have a secondary legislation act that will define exactly the sort of information and data that needs to be available via the DPP for that particular product. And I think here on this slide, you can see the different type of information that the DPP can contain. So it will not be the same sort of information for a toy or for a battery. And what is also very important is while scanning the data carrier, the sort of information that the user will be able to access will depend on the access rights of the user. So it will not be the same sort of information for the consumers, for competent authorities, public authorities such as market surveillance authorities, or even other stakeholders in the supply chain. So if we go to why the DPP is there, what is the rationale? Why do we believe that the DPP is necessary and can improve the ecosystem for products? So what we believe is that the DPP can create benefits for all actors involved in the let's say the product life cycle, right? So for businesses, it can really help to digitalize product information, which is something that it's already happening, but of course the DPP will accelerate this process. And by digitalizing information, this will in turn help reduce costs and burden for businesses in terms of printing, shipping, storage costs for information, etc. It can help centralize digital product data, which can in turn help simplify reporting and simplify compliance with existing rules vis-a-vis public authorities. And finally, we believe that the DPP can also create business opportunities, and very important business opportunities, because it can connect all the stakeholders in the supply chain. So it can facilitate repairability, maintenance, and also sales of related products, accessories, etc. So it can help open new business avenues. Then for consumers, really the DPP improves transparency, because we will be able to access information very much as was explained in the video. Now information can be accessed only when you purchase the item, or the type of information that you can perhaps find at the physical store. But we know that most of the commerce is also moving online. So it's very important that this information is also available online when purchasing the product. With the DPP, there is always a guarantee that this information is verified and is updated. And then it can also help in terms of comparability of the product versus other products, so it can help make more informed choices. And finally, it can help also with the sustainability of the product, because it can facilitate information regarding the repair and the maintenance of the product. And very importantly, I think also for this session today, is the benefits that the DPP can bring to public authorities. Because by having all of this information digitally available, it can help automatize certain compliance checks and reporting. So it can facilitate for market surveillance authorities and for customs authorities really the checks on the compliance of the product with the applicable rules. So this really has a lot of potential, and we think it's a very aspect that the DPP will bring, sustainability aspect. So really, if I had to summarize, the benefits that we see of the DPP would be for business really efficiency, consumers transparency, and authorities more enforcement and more automatized enforcement. This is in a nutshell a little bit about the DPP, what it is, what it intends to achieve. But then really how is it, what's the framework around the DPP? How are we designing it in the European Union? We'll start with the legal framework, and then we can move to the more technical framework. So as a lawyer by training, I find the legal framework of the DPP quite fascinating, at the same time quite complex and quite challenging. So as I was mentioning, the DPP started really as an instrument to facilitate sustainability and circularity of products. And the original legal basis for the DPP, the first time that we heard about it, was in the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. And that constitutes really the horizontal legal base at the moment for the DPP. But this is not the only act that refers to the DPP. The what we call the ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, needs to be complemented by secondary legislation. I mentioned at the beginning that the information and the characteristics of each specific product information that needs to be in the DPP, type of data, how it needs to be available, for how long, etc. It will really be on a product group basis. So this means that it needs to be it needs to be regulated via secondary legislation, in this case, delegated acts from the Commission. And then at the same time, we are seeing that the DPP has been picked up because it has a lot of potential by other EU regulations and directives, so by other pieces of EU law that are now referring also to the DPP in more sector-specific fields. So the ESPR constitutes the legal basis, the horizontal basis for the DPP, but at the same time, it needs to be complemented by certain secondary legislation, which is underway. These are the 4 secondary acts that are mentioned in the ESPR and that are needed for the implementation of the DPP and what we call the central registry or the central elements of the DPP that will be common to all of the product group categories. As you can see, there are 4 of them, but I can already advance that the adoption is planned as of this year. So by this month, June of 2026, or at the latest next month in July, we will have the first implementing act on the DPP, which will set up the registries for the central registry of the DPP that will be functioning as of July of this year. And then progressively, we are working on all of the other delegated and implementing acts, so establishing the ecosystem that will surround the DPP in a central manner. So the requirements for DPP service providers, the implementing act setting out the procedures to issue and verify the digital credentials of the economic operators, and the delegated act establishing rules and procedures for the life cycle management of the unique identifiers and data carriers. All of this will come in the next few months. So, as I mentioned, we have the central components of the DPP that will be common to all of the product groups, but at the same time, the ESPR is only containing, let's say, the horizontal framework that needs to be complemented by sector-specific rules regarding what type of information each product group needs to provide to the DPP. And here you have a little bit the timeline or the priority products as they are set out in the work program for the ESPR, for the implementation of the ESPR. So you will see that the dates here refer to when this secondary legislation is expected to come out. So you can see that we will start with iron and steel, then proceed with textiles and aluminium, etc., tires. And the idea is that once these delegated acts setting out the product-specific information and data are out, then there will be a period of preparedness for the industry of at least 18 months until the DPP is required for these product groups. And then I also mentioned that the legal framework is complex, and it's because it doesn't end with the ESPR or the secondary legislation coming out of the ESPR, but then the DPP is also being picked up by other sector-specific legal acts in the that are proposed by the Commission and then adopted by the European co-legislators. And here you have just an example with a list. It is worth mentioning the batteries and waste batteries regulation because this will be the first product groups for which the DPP will become mandatory as of February of next year. And what is also important to mention is that we are not talking here about different DPPs. There is only one DPP. What is different is the type of information, the type of rules that surround this DPP with these central elements. What we want to achieve as the European Commission is a system that can be flexible enough to accommodate the different product sectors and to accommodate objectives beyond sustainability that were the ones in the ESPR. It is also very important for us not to create any fragmentation. So we do not want economic operators to have to face several DPPs if they are active in various markets and they provide various product groups. This is really not the objective at all. The objective is to ensure as much harmonization and as least fragmentation as possible. Now, moving on to the technical framework. So, I think this slide is very telling, and it can really give a bit of a flavor of the architecture behind the DPP. Something very important and a big misconception around the DPP is that it's a central database for product information at EU level, and this is really not the case. The DPP combines a centralized and a decentralized model. So the central elements and the technical central elements are centralized and provided by the European Commission, while the product information remains with the economic operator, with the DPP at the economic operator storage, let's say. So, and I think this is clearly displayed in this slide. So if we see how the whole process starts, it starts with on the left side of the screen with the economic operator that wants to place a product in the market, in the EU market. So that economic operator will have to collect all of the information for that specific product group. Will have to collect all of the necessary information to create the DPP that can create itself directly or via a service provider of the DPP. Then these product identifiers need to be registered in the registry that will be provided by the European Commission and will be common to all. Here is where we have the centralized storage, but this registry will only cover certain high-level metadata on the product and the economic operator, while all of the real product information will remain with the economic operator and the DPP. So once the DPP exists and is registry, then the product can be placed in the market. And then if a product is imported, the idea is that the registry will be connected with the customs services and authorities that will be able to check that when a product is to be imported in the European market has the necessary complete DPP. And then you can see that the full data, as I was saying, in the middle of the screen is stored with the economic operators or the DPP service providers, if that is their choice. And then on the right side of the screen, you can see let's say the side of the users. So we will have different users that will be able to access the DPP by scanning the data carrier. In this case, it's a QR code. And the type of information that they will be able to access, I was mentioning beginning, will be different depending on their profile and the user rights. So market authorities can search the DPP and then they can access certain information to see whether it's correct and compliance with product specific rules, while for customers, the data carrier will show a certain other information that can help them to make their purchasing decision or can help them with the repairability of the product or the user manuals, etc. And the same for other stakeholders involved in the product chain, such as recyclers or repairers. And then at the top, you have another of the central elements that is important for the DPP, that is the Commission's web portal that will allow stakeholders, so all of the ones that we have seen below, to find links to the DPPs. Again, the type of information will be dependent on their specific permissions. So really just one slide on standardization, because it's a very important aspect, but I know that Professor Knothe will cover this after me, so I will not spend too much time here, but standardization is a very important part of the DPP implementation, because it can ensure interoperability. And for us, for the Commission, this is critical. Interoperability is critical because the DPP should not be seen as just a compliance tool or just like a very isolated ecosystem of information. It really needs to be accessible and reused as much as possible for it to bring all of the benefits that we have seen. So for this reason, the Commission requested CEN-CENELEC 8 harmonized standards that have already been, 6 of them have already been delivered, have received a positive vote, and have now, I believe, been published by CEN-CENELEC, and then very shortly the European Commission will publish also their references, while all of the standards are really very well advanced and will soon enter the voting process. And really, from here, I just want to extend our gratitude to everybody that has been involved in this process, because it has been it has taken place in really a record time, which I think shows the commitment of everybody to make sure that the DPP can be a success. And then what I think it's also important to explain is that we are very much aware that the value chains and the products don't stop at the border. We are very much aware of countries like Turkey that are really a very important partners, trade partners of the EU. And for this, the Commission will actively participate in the international standardization work that is going to start its operations in September, to really be able to share our knowledge just and our experience getting to here. Now, the way forward, what is it that it's coming? Look, so on this, I think it's very important to say that while the Commission is very much certain of the benefits that the DPP can bring, as I said, many actors, we are also aware it can create some initial costs and really require some initial efforts and investments, especially on the part of businesses and especially for SMEs. So this is why the Commission is really committed to supporting businesses in the implementation and in getting ready for the take-up of the DPP. So how we are planning and how we are already supporting businesses. So first of all, with technical guidance and documentation for the DPP, explaining what it is, what are the obligations, how to register in the registry, how to use it, etc., etc. We have published a Q&A guidance in our website. We are also launching awareness campaigns and readiness campaigns to support the industry, also via webinars and other events. And we are really focusing on the product groups that will be the ones to implement the DPP, that are the batteries. So we had already a workshop with them a couple of weeks ago, and there's another one planned before the summer. Really, the objective is very clear: to always make sure that the DPP remains involved and remains aware of what their obligations are and how to best prepare for the DPP. And then finally, we are working on open source tools to really help companies and SMEs to be able to prepare to use these tools as much as possible. And then what I also think it's important to mention here is that, as I was mentioning, the information for each product category will be set at secondary legislation. In adopting the secondary legislation, the Commission always carries out very important and strict consultation campaigns with the industry. So then at that point, I think it's also very important for the industry to make itself heard, to express what they think it's proportionate in terms of data points and of information that they should provide. Here, a little bit about the timeline. So I mentioned already some of these key steps. So in June of this year, we are adopting the implementing act for the registry. There has also been a good progress with the standardization workstream. In July, the DPP registry will become operational, and economic operators will start being able to test it and to register themselves. And then here you can see a little bit this kind of staggered application of the DPP that I was talking about. It's really not about starting with all of the products at the same time. We are really going one by one. And we will start with the batteries in February of 2027. And then you can see that, many others will come in the next couple of years. Concrete next steps. So the harmonized standards that have been undertaken by CEN-CENELEC will all be published soon. We are launching the registry in July of 2027 and really February 2026. And then really February of 2027 is really a very important date, because it's when the DPP will become mandatory for the first products. These are the big batteries as established in the batteries regulation. And then the DPP will be introduced for a wide range of other products as specified in the SPR work program from the end of 2027 and onwards. So really, if I can leave you with an idea, is that the implementation of the DPP is well underway, that the Commission is aware of the benefits that the DPP is bringing, but also of the challenges that businesses can can experience when starting to get ready and to implement the DPP. And we are here to support the industry as much as possible. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them at the end, or also we can receive them via this functional mailbox, and we are happy to engage further. Thank you.
Thank you Miss Cartagena. Sorusu olan konuklarımız var mı? Mikrofonu Sayın Daire Başkanımıza en öne lütfen iletirsek çok sevinirim.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all the information you have provided and the time that you have spared for us. We are also thankful that you're always providing the opportunity for comments. The last time that we conveyed our position paper was on the Implementing Act for the DPP registry. I'm a bit anxious, though, how we are going to keep up with the process that's going to come, because it's a short process, but a lot of secondary legislation to come. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep up with your pace. I have a particular question. I know that the DPP is aiming for interoperability. But as you know, and as you have also rightly mentioned, the DPP is more than just a sustainability-aimed initiative. It brings more transparency. And so in that sense, it transcends beyond the traditional ways of making trade rules, integrating not only commercially sensitive data, but also personal data or issues regarding identity verification in terms of registration into a database. So aside from the semantic interoperability, how do you plan to also ensure interoperability in these areas? That's to say, to ensure that trade continues smoothly in this process with the rest of the world, who have different ways of verification of, say, national identities or different types of data, or, you know, absolutely on cybersecurity law. And this was one of the major issues that came forward in our comments conveyed to the Commission for the DPP registry as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if you want me to take the questions now, or are there only any other further questions, and then I take them all at the same time?
There's one more question. Maybe you can also take that before you answer.
Hemen beyefendiye iletelim mikrofonu. Teşekkür ederiz.
Thank you very much for your valuable presentation. I want to ask the status of April and energy labeling after DPP comes into force. The energy
Çok özür dilerim. Sorunuzu ayakta sorma şansınız olur mu? Kameranın da çekmesi açısından. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Sorry, they want to be stand up so that camera can see me. I want to ask about the status of energy label and April after the DPP comes into force. Will the energy label be included in the DPP, and the April database will it become a part of DPP database, or there will be separate issues? And maybe that can be a detailed question regarding the textile and iron steel products, etc. for non-CE products. For CE mark products, we will have a declaration of conformity and mandatory test reports in DPP, but for non-regulated or classic approach products, or in a strict saying, non-CE products, which reports or documentation will be included in the DPP to ensure the safety of the product? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not sure if there are any other questions, but I can start with these two. So first of all, just to thank you for your submission on the consultation for the Implementing Act on the DPP, because it was well received and it has been assessed and taken into consideration in finalizing the draft. So to give you a bit of a state of play on that implementing regulation, what you saw published for consultation was an initial draft that has since evolved and has also been consulted with member states in what we call the comitology process, because well, this is in accordance with the rules for the adoption of implementing acts. The proposed draft by the Commission needs to be endorsed by the committee. So the draft has really substantially evolved, I would say, and in some of the points that you were mentioned regarding interoperability and regarding the verification process for economic operators also established outside, this continues to be a key building block because we need to ensure the reliability of the system. But your concerns have probably in a way been superseded by the new draft. To also give you a bit of a state of play on the next steps, this draft will need to be voted in comitology by the end of the month, and the voting date is already planned on the 22nd of this month, and then it will be published. So if there are still any concerns on your side regarding the published version, we are always happy to speak on this. And then regarding I think the second question, I'm not sure I heard it correctly, but I think it had to do with the specific data points for textiles and then the interplay with the April database and requirements. On this point, the second point, I can say that we are being very much aware of not to create any duplications between April obligations and the DPP obligations. So there will be a system by which if one certain data points are already covered by April, then the economic operator would not have to include them directly in the DPP again, and both systems would be connected and would be interoperable. This is what we were saying. At the same time, when it has to do with the specific requirements for textiles, I am afraid I will not be able to give you much information because the process is still underway. And the way that the Commission is organized, my unit in DigiGrow, G2, is responsible for the central elements of the DPP, while the secondary legislation that has to do with this each product category is really with my colleagues that are much more experts on the field. But what we are doing for each and every delegated act on product-specific information is that we are carrying out really a wide consultation process. So if you have any concerns or any remarks or any views that you would like to express in that context, this consultation will be open in due time. I think not for the moment.
Sorumuz var mıdır? Hemen en önden geliyor efendim.
Thank you. The question is about e-signatures and e-seals. How e-signatures and e-seals will play a role in for implementing data to DPP for non-EU companies?
At the moment, the requirements that we are considering, and as I said, I can only speak on the draft that we are considering at the moment that needs to be again voted by member states. So just take this as a tentative. We are not considering a different system for established versus non-established economic operators. This will be the same one for everybody, and it's currently based on the EIDAS framework, and it also takes into consideration the possibility of using the European Business Wallet once it becomes available. So there is absolutely no difference between established versus non-established economic operators.
Başka soru sormak isteyen konuğumuz sanıyorum yok. Thank you for answering the question, Ms. Cartagena.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
You too.
Sayın Cartagena'ya teşekkür ettikten sonra I would now like to give the floor to Professor Dr. Ing. Thomas Knothe. You have the floor, Mr. Knothe. Mr. Knothe bağlanmak üzere. Mr. Knothe, can you hear me? Please open the microphone. You can hear.
So, it's now possible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. And you can see me, yes? Okay. So, start again. Thank you so much for the invitation to this event. as may you know, standardization is maybe 10% technical content, 90% communication. And this is part of my work for communication of those standards. Let's introduce myself from the perspective what you can expect. I'm from an industrial research institute, Fraunhofer, and this means we are working on that perspective on DPP and circularity since 2015 and 2019. We started with a battery circularity foundation. With the battery pass, we created at least the foundation for the EU battery pass, as well as the technical guidance. And based on this technical guidance, we introduced those considerations into the technical framework of the European Commission for the standardization. And currently we are working for the test environment for the data validation and the interaction test between economic operators and the systems of the European Commission, but as well as external systems. As you know, I'm responsible for the CEN-CENELEC JTC 24 DPP framework and system standards as established now for most of them, but as well I'm initiating or part of the initiation of the ISO IEC JTC 5 standardization committee, which deals with the implementation and the development and implementation of standards on a global level, because you know we are here in Europe and in Turkey not alone. And last but not least, my department is responsible as well for the industrial implementation of DPP, and here in specific cases for the batteries, for instance, for a large European automotive OEM with more than 40 plants globally. So this means this is the information from the implementation. Anna had already explained the benefits. I would like to complement on the three, let me say, roles or stakeholders. And one is really to have a much more effective market surveillance and customs operations. May you know, in Europe, we are currently able to check conformity of products coming from outside by less than 0.025% of all the products. So this means you can imagine what does it mean for conformity and safety of our products in Europe coming from outside. What is as well very interesting, and your very, very nice video considered this, is those digital product paths can improve the opportunity for consumers to taking informed decisions. But even more, and I'm not quite sure how it is in Turkey, but in Europe, we are very much bored by, as consumers, that we buy products, and when is something wrong with that, when something, let me say, goes down with the product, as you could see in the video, then we normally have to buy a new one. And by using scores for repairability, we can be informed in front of the buying of a new product to see to which extent we can repair this or not. And this is really important for the consumers as well. And here the digital product path can contribute. This is at least a complementary aspect of your video as well. And even the industry, to some extent, are bored, or let me say, complaining a lot more of bureaucracy by having new regulations. It is a big, big chance, as Anna explained already. There are not only other business models. I would like just to refer to the opportunity for the industry to get even new touch points to the consumers. Because today, a lot of companies do not know what's happened with the product after they sold it. Yeah? So this is at least as well our motivation coming from standardization. Now coming to a little bit theoretical input, how the EU DPP is working. As Anna had explained, we have at least 3 systems which are connected to each other. We have the European Central Services with a registry, which just taking some IDs and not the data itself, and providing additional passport services, for instance, the web portal for the comparability or comparison between different passports. Then we have the distributed DPP systems, which belongs to the economic operators. Those are the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, or the importers. This means here, as Anna explained, the data is on their side. And we have to implement a third-party services for the backup. Yeah, you can imagine if an economic operator disappears, then we still need the data. And this is organized as well already in the ESPR, but it is used for other regulations too. And based on a data carrier, which is mostly taking into the account the ID, a consumer can access to the data. And here we have the opportunity, and this is really encouraging as well for the industry, that we have mandatory data, which comes from the regulation, but as well voluntary data. And the mandatory data is, of course, defined and specified by the product group specific standards in the delegated acts. And here you can see the typical data coming from the battery regulation, for instance, but as well additional data which is already sent to be mandatory. These are, so to speak, dynamic data. For instance, the state of health of the battery. You can imagine the battery is in an EV car the most expensive part. If you would like to buy a used car, the buyer would like to know how about the health status of the battery. And here you have the opportunity for transparency. But as I mentioned, there are others possible to create more benefit for the consumers. This kind of example can be as well accessed via this QR code here. I guess this presentation can be shared by everyone. So just to give you an idea how the European system, the DPP system, is working. Now coming to standardization. I guess in Turkey it's the same, it is as well in Europe. The standards creation in Europe is coming normally from industry demand through the major official standardization organizations. These are CEN and CENELEC and ETSI, and they are at least creating the table for the industry to perform the work for having European standards. And there is another opportunity for European Commission to drive this. And this is at least based on the perspective of regulations. Here, for instance, coming from the ESPR, there is then a consultation by a standardization request ad hoc group to have a standardization request coming from the European Commission into the game from CEN-CENELEC and ETSI. And this was happened as well for the standardization according to the DPP system in Europe here done by CEN and CENELEC. And based on that, then when the standards are at least elaborated as we have it today, then the European Commission is responsible for performing assessment in order to make clear if the standards are implementing the regulatory requirements coming, for instance, from the ESPR. And when this assessment is successfully applied, then at least we can have a harmonized standard, which is then published in the official journal. And the good news here is, with having this harmonized standards, then an economic operator, the industry, can claim a presumption of conformity when they apply this standard. And this is really important because normally, of course, European standards, every standard is voluntary to be used, and even harmonized standards. But when we complying with these standards, industry can complain, yes, I was compliant with the standard, I have this presumption of conformity, and this has a big impact on all the issues, on penalties and so on, if something went wrong. Yeah, so we can at least assume that we are conform, so we are at least on the safe side from the perspective of an economic operator. Now coming to the scope of the JTC 24 standards. And here to mention, it is very important, we had this question already on interoperability. The very important part is we have just one DPP system for all the product groups and even for all the different regulations. So we started with ESPR and battery regulation, but maybe you know there is currently the elaboration and finalization of the EPA, the European Product Act, and even the conformity document according to the EPA will go through the DPP system. So we have just one DPP system, and this creates, of course, some challenges regarding interoperability because all the different product groups on the left side have to go through this system. Batteries, electronics, we had mentioned today the textiles. Yeah? But they are, as Anna explained, defined in separated regulations. For the DPP system, the JTC 24 is responsible for. The data is not in the scope of JTC 24. Now coming to the process scope of JTC 24, all the upstream process means here is an example from the batteries, from mining to the production of a battery is not part of our JTC 24 work. How this documents and even information is exchanged between partners. But when a product is set on the market, then the data has to be there, and then all the interoperability issues on registry, access data, update data is part of the JTC 24 work. This means as well the life cycle of a product, if this is relevant, for instance, for the battery, as I mentioned, the update of the data, how is the health of the battery? Yeah. So now coming to our system and how the standards are there. And normally standardization is quite a long-term issue and not very dynamic. Anna explained that the standards, the 6 out of 8 standards are soon to be published. I have to update here, they are published on the 28th of May already, so they are available. So what we have now is the harmonization means the publication on the European Journal means this is the next step, which will be performed in June, probably. So, but the standards, the 6 out of 8 standards are already available and you can download. But now looking to the standard itself, and here it's very important. We had this question on interoperability already. For the data carriers, and you see here some examples, there exist already a lot in the market. Yeah, and for sure, this is already established in different industry. You can imagine in our standardization, if we just choose one, then this would be a big burden of the entire industry. What we had done here is to create a system where on an inclusively approach that based on common requirements, different standards are eligible to be used. Yeah? And this is not just for the data carrier, you can as well think about unique identifiers. There already exists a lot in the market. And there was as well the the question regarding interoperability, how this is compliant with international standards. And what we had done here is to respect and include it into our standards already ISO existing and IEC standards as much as possible in order to be aligned with the entire global trade. Yeah? And this is done for the unique identifiers, because these are the access to the system at least. The next are access rights management, information system security, and business confidentiality. And here as well, there was a question how we have the opportunity to ensure the right access rights management. Anna explained there are different stakeholders can have access different kind of data from the DPP. And this is organized in the module 3 from a perspective of risk. So then a very core standard is the API. This is our interface specification between the core components, but as well coming to economic operators, service providers, but all the others like public and private stakeholders who would like to have access on the DPP. And here, for instance, we developed even 5 to 6 different read APIs, where from outside a secure application from different perspectives on the DPP data can be organized. The same is for the data processing, data exchange protocols, and core data formats, so that all the other product-specific data points can jump on it. And we have the data storage, archiving, and data persistence. You can imagine how to organize the backup service. The other service, the data authentication. We had in your nice video the question, oh, is this reliable or not? And here, especially, we developed the rules how to deal with that. And we have the issue of interoperability. This is more from the perspective how to integrate into this system different data specifications coming from the specific product-specific regulations. So as you can see now, the green ones are published now already, so they are available. And in addition to Anna's presentation, the blue standards, modules 3 and 7, are already in a formal vote. So now looking to one example, because I'm not allowed to tell you details of the standard itself, this is an issue of APR. But what I can tell you, for instance, for the data carrier, we defined requirements for the data carriers which have to be mandatory fulfilled. And then we showed and we demonstrated already existing conformant types of eligible data carriers from QR codes and how to be applied. And we as well defined the conditions for the application so that a user can choose the best data carrier for its purpose. The same is for the unique identifier. So we performed in this inclusivity approach that different companies, different stakeholders can use their existing technologies as much as possible already, but they are still interoperable to all the others. So now coming to the next steps, as I mentioned, we developed the metastructure in order to have a modular system and an interoperable system. And this is now under final development and at least documentation. There will be system architecture much more, let me say, defined and more detailed, as I could mention here, so that system provider can much better access this. And we are currently working on the repository definition for the data catalogs in the draft for the implementing act for the registry. There is mentioned a semantic repository, and this is contributing exactly to that. And of course, this work is now, let me say, under transfer to the ISO IEC JTC5 in order to be compliant as much as possible, but JTC5 will be even bigger. And this will as well have an influence to JTC24 in the future as well. So this is just the outlook. And thank you so much for the invitation, and especially thank you so much from the Turkish Standardization Organization to contribute to the work in JTC24. Thanks a lot.
Teşekkür ediyoruz. Soru sormak isteyen konuğumuz var mıdır? Hemen sağınıza mikrofon geliyor efendim.
Thank you very much. Even if your system is central, but I understand that it's open also to blockchain technology. So you didn't give any information about technology. What do you think about blockchain technology? If you are permitted to explain this standards.
Yeah, I can permit.
Thank you.
For the DPP system in the scope of the CEN-CENELEC DPP system for the European Commission, because we define this in a way as have it as narrow as possible, yeah, in order to be open as possible. This means inside this system means for registry, for reading, for update, there is no requirement for blockchain. If there is a product, let me say, ecosystem, which is applying blockchain, for instance, for preventing having bogus parts in aerospace industry, where it is applied already, this is possible to be used. Yeah, but you know, blockchain is just one technology for supporting integrity. So there exist others as well. And our approach was as much as possible to be open. Yeah, and this is the reason why we concentrated on a core system, so that every ecosystem can apply the best suitable technology for their purpose, and of course to apply the existing one in order to avoid additional costs and all these things you can imagine. You know, maybe you know, in the beginning when we started in 2022, 2023 for preparing everything, there were some discussions, how we should integrate mandatory blockchain into the game. And at least we decided to not have this mandatory done, and even in the system not. And I think this was a wise decision to keep it open for as much as possible products. And you know, maybe the EIDAS framework for the authentication and the e-wallet, even they do not mandate blockchain, but there is an option for having blockchain. Yeah. Hope this could answer your question.
Thank you, Mrs. Knothe. Başka soru sormak isteyen konuğumuz var mıdır? Bir hanımefendi burada. Sadece ayağa kalkmanızı rica edeceğim. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you for the valuable information you have shared today. As part of the symposium, we also have sessions yesterday focusing on the market surveillance in the digital environment. I would like to raise a question regarding the implication of the digitalization for market surveillance. So when products reach their final stage before being placed on the market, they are issued a certificate of conformity. And during the market surveillance activities, the validity of these certificates is verified. So you also mentioned the data updates in your presentation. So, however, in the digital age, products continue to evolve and receive updates even after they have been placed on the market. So in this context, when a product undergoes a digital or software update, will it be subject to a new market surveillance assessment? If so, how will it be determined whether assessment is required, and what framework or criteria will manage this process? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think this question is, I can answer from the perspective of the standardization. Yeah, what we created in our standard is that this is possible, means to update the data and to verify the data, because especially in our security standards, we foresee especially those kind of operations, means using verifiable credentials and so on. So this means this is possible, but of course the regulation and the implementing acts for the regulation are at least defining what kind of processes and information flows and even responsibilities are there for the specific product groups. So this is even here still under discussion, how to have horizontal rules, means applicable for every product, so that we do not need to invent for each product all the procedures, and then have at least a framework for defining even the specific processes and rules. And I come just from another meeting today, where in our HLF high-level forum, we are creating the recommendations for the standardization of DPP in front of EPA, the European Product Act, because here this is exactly the point where we have to at least align and synchronize all these things. So this means we had foreseen this in our standards, but of course this has to be synchronized with the with those kind of regulations and even the implementing act. So hope this could answer. So because it's just from the standardization perspective, because I cannot talk on behalf of European Commission.
Thank you, Professor. Başka soru sormak isteyen sanıyorum yok. Thank you for answering the questions, Professor.
Yeah, I have a question.
Have a nice day.
Maybe, or not a question, but it is just a motivation. I know that in Turkey we have the development of the DPP system as well. And so far I understood from official documents that Turkish government is looking to apply the principles of the EU DPP system, as I explained, as well. And I'm more than happy. And I know, and I'm very understanding this point, that the registry will be made under the responsibility of the Turkish government. And my motivation is, let's work on how to have a very suitable interoperability between both in order to support our industry and our trade. This is just my motivation statement.
Thank you so much again. Ve beyefendiler, çok teşekkür ediyoruz çevrimiçi konuklarımıza. Şimdi sadece 15 dakikalık bir kahve arası veriyoruz. Kahve arasından sonra Dijital Ürün Pasaportu Uygulama Altyapıları başlıklı 5. oturumumuz başlıyor olacak.